A big good evening to everyone tonight from This is New Zealand webinar. My name's Chris Galway from Migration Cover. I'm joined in the room tonight by two of my esteemed colleagues, Mr. John Moynes from PSS Removals. Good afternoon or good evening, John.
Yeah, good evening or good afternoon. I've noticed earlier that we've got a number of attendees worldwide, really. So if everybody could give us a little shout out, and let us know where you're logging in from, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's great. We love speaking to people from all over the world. Of course, we normally do that, don't we, John, for a lot of the webinars that we get involved in. This one in particular for New Zealand is really, really special and really important to us.
Oh, definitely. Certainly on our part too. I mean, this is where it all started for PSS, is with New Zealand. Been helping people out there now for in excess of 35 years. So it's always enjoyable, relaxed atmosphere. I think that's what it is for matching the lifestyle out in New Zealand. So really looking forward to it. And I think Matt's also in the background there.
Yeah, Matt,
hey, how you doing?
Yeah, hi. Moneycorp. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good. Just logging in from my boiling hot room here. Just finished watching the tennis. I'm sure a few other people are there. So Andy Murray through to the next round. But we're not here to talk about tennis. But hopefully I can see a few people on the chat, a few highs out there. Quite a lot of people from the UK, a few South Africans in there. Any other countries out there?
Yeah, look, there's obviously a lot from the UK. I know that we've got people in here tonight from as far away as the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, the United States of America, and even people have got up early enough in the morning to join us from New Zealand, believe it or not, guys. So listen, tonight's going to be completely interactive. We've got a lot of important information to share with you about the services that we provide and more so about becoming visa ready or ready for your new life in New Zealand, and how important it is to look at the services that us as a collective provide to This is New Zealand, both the webinars and the seminars that we attend to, and how we help people in the community, attain their dreams and ambitions as well. So just to do a little bit of homework, did I say homework? Just to do a bit of housekeeping. Sorry, guys. On the right-hand side, I think most of you have found the chat system so far. So type away, be as interactive as you possibly can. You'll notice as well, where you do type in, there's a little grey box at the moment. It might show a little cloud. If you drop that down, it turns into a Q&A, which allows you to ask questions. Now, a lot of the questions that we want you to ask us, look, if you can leave them to the end, that would be fantastic, because we are going to do an open Q&A. We're going to attempt to answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. A lot of you would have come through and have been involved in a previous webinar with This is New Zealand, in particular with Migration Associates, with Bore Chum and the team over there, who are obviously fantastic visa advisors, visa professionals, immigration lawyers, and also This is New Zealand, This is New Zealand, Skills in Demand, the recruitment firm who obviously help people get jobs, and the tremendous work that they do, not only from the area of migration, but also on the ground in New Zealand, what they do for the community and also the economy as well. So I think everyone in this room, like Moinsey and Matt, you'd both speak that way about them as well. They've been around for years and they've helped a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've worked with the guys for a number of years, and I think it's interesting your point about all the additional services. A lot of people, when they're going, a lot of people I speak to focus on visa and or job if that's required, but actually they put all of the other things to the side and think, well, I'll worry about that nearer the time, when actually what we're going to talk about today is about the sooner you get information about everything involved in your move, the more informed you're going to be. And so when the time comes, you know exactly where you are, what things cost, what you need to do, who to speak to, and a lot of the homework's been done. So it makes your life a lot easier. A lot of people, one of the things I'm going to be talking about is currency exchange. So a lot of people get to the end of the process and suddenly realize, maybe they've been looking at houses they can't afford, etc. That they're not using an up-to-date exchange rate. So we're going to talk a lot about getting that information at the very early stage. And same with John, with the removal side, making sure you get your quotes, how it works, how long it takes, what you can take, what you can't take. Getting that information as soon as possible is just going to help you out later on down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's great having the internet, everything at your fingertips. But what we found is, we're constantly getting phone calls saying, can you pick up next week? Not even knowing the regulations, because everything's already available on the internet. But to be honest, as you were saying, Chris, it's all about being migrant ready or migrant savvy. So it's about pre-planning, budgeting, speaking to the guys right from the outset. You spend your life accumulating bits and pieces, and as with currency, and the same with getting your personal sentimental bits that far across the board, leaving that till the very last minute. So it's great that you have this opportunity, to be able to speak to this many individuals and just really cross-sharing a bit of advice, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, it's totally open and interactive as well. So, please, chat away with us. Let us know if you have any difficulties whatsoever. We're going to be switching in and out of our presentation as well, so that you can speak to the team here. We're also going to be playing you a short video that I found online that John will appreciate. It's about his company, and it's a fantastic video that I think exemplifies the services of PSS as well. So we'll show you that. So we'll be switching in and out. If you do lose communication, simply just click back on the link and come back into the webinar as well. Without any further ado, we'll continue on. So, as I said, my name's Chris Galway from Migration Cover. What we'll be doing is this sequence here. So we'll have a bit of a chat about New Zealand, some of the interesting bits of information that you need to know about New Zealand. We'll talk to Matt at Moneycorp's got a presentation, and then John and myself, and then, as I said, we'll open up for the Q&A straight after that. So why New Zealand? I can give you 10,000 reasons why New Zealand, other than the lifestyle, the scenery, the people, the culture. There's so many things, and I'm going to open this up to you, Moinsey, actually. New Zealand, fantastic place. Other than, and you can talk about it, I suppose, is the rugby.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I see a lot of South Africans online today. I'm an expat, travelled down from South Africa and travelling all over the world, and now ending up in the UK, and obviously rugby obsessed. And I think with New Zealand, it's not just, although it's a rugby obsessed nation, and obviously I'm sure they really gutted against losing against the Lions last weekend, which makes this weekend really exciting. It's just sport in general, that outdoor lifestyle. I mean, yes, looking out the window in London now, beautiful sunny weather, but that is so far and in between. I mean, you got. Although New Zealand's a small country as a whole when you think of population, but a couple of hours drive, you're sitting in the tropics, and the next you're skiing down the slopes. But I think it's more. It's more the kids, running around barefoot. No fences around. It's just that what we were like when we were kids, and I think that's what we all really miss, instead of, having our children like my two stuck behind the PlayStation in front of the TV and on WhatsApp and everything else. It's, I think if we think back what it was like when we were kids, I think really that's what the attraction is. And also, they're so far removed from a lot of the political issues around the world and everything else. It's just a really great environment.
Oh, absolutely. That freedom of life, about that work-life balance, working the hours that you need to work and then coming home to the family, or, dropping the kids off at school, making sure that you're there for your children or there for your family, respective families as well. It's so important to this culture. In fact, the whole of the New Zealand culture is built on that. It's one of the biggest things I can say about that, work-life balance. It leads into this whole discussion about a class society. And you do see it in other countries where you do have a class society. I can tell you now that New Zealand does not have a class society. Everyone's treated exactly the same. Everyone's treated fairly and with integrity and ethics. And it's actually really famous for around the world as being, one of the most popular places to live in the world. And it's not just because of that work-life balance. It's also because they've got a very strong economy, very stable politics, and you'll see some growth coming out of New Zealand like no other place really at the moment. As I said, the economy's looking great, but also the visa numbers looking fantastic as well. So the more people that they can get into New Zealand, of course, then you're looking for more housing, more infrastructure, and then more schools as well. So what I might just touch on now, and I think maybe you don't have children, but at school age, but for for having a good education for your children is a very, very important facet to that big decision about moving from one country to another. Now, I know in this room, for instance, there's going to be many of you who have already migrated in one capacity or another, and this is a further move for you. So you'd be used to the arrangements that take place in this regard. But education in New Zealand is actually based on the UK curriculum initially, and then they've structured themselves accordingly. So if you look at the school kids and how they go through the practice of education, it's very similar to the UK or any other Western country. The differences now are that there's some very, very strong links to industry from the school system. So a lot of kids will go out of school, they'll get an apprenticeship or a traineeship through the models that they have there in the vocational sector and transition into the workplace as well. New Zealand very much has a culture of, if you're bringing someone over to New Zealand to participate in that country, then they'll also try and build people up internally as well. So I think that sort of sets them apart from really any other country that you'll come across. We love it because it's like bring one and build one. We've already touched on the outdoor lifestyle, but I suppose, Moinsy, we can go a little bit further to that. No shoes. You said it.
Yeah, I know. It's just bizarre, you dare not even think of nipping down to the local Tesco's here in the UK. But I mean, to see blokes walking around barefoot, and just enjoying the outdoors, that's really, for me, that is the main attraction, and to be honest with you, most of us get so caught up in the day-to-day. My sister's been out there best part of 15 years, and the first thing she's ever said is that there's always just seems time to do other things. It's not work, come home, eat, sleep, and that same, work to live type routine, whereas there's a lot of interaction that everybody, you get along, and exactly what you said, there's no such thing as separation in terms of standards out there. It's just everybody's pretty relaxed. I mean, yes, things maybe go on a bit of a go slow, unlike here where, you phone that electrician and you expect him there within the hour, or the plumber within the hour. You may have to wait a little bit longer for certain things to happen, but that's just the laid back lifestyle that you're actually buying into. And really what we found is that we do a lot of stats, because obviously we send a lot of shipments out to New Zealand. Yes, 1 in 10 do come back, but that's more for personal reasons, not because of the country itself or anything like that. But I mean, we'll go into more detail with regards to what you do in that field, Chris. But it's certainly all the feedback that I've got from clients, they have come back, but within a year, they head straight back to New Zealand. They just thought that maybe they're missing the family and then come back and then realize, hang on, life is pretty good out there, and head straight back out again.
It was that old adage, the grass is always greener on the other side. Well, in this instance, it is, just quietly. New Zealand is definitely greener. And it's not too far from anywhere, really. There's obviously Australia's on your doorstep. It's not far to the United States. You've got the local island chains that exist around Fiji and Vanuatu and Solomon Islands, not too far to Bali. Look, the world's at your feet when you go to New Zealand as well. So, listen, we're not trying to sell it to you. It's already sold as far as we're concerned. You wouldn't be here otherwise. But we do get excited about talking about New Zealand, that's for sure. So moving on, so just a short advert for the visa and job assistance. And we're not really going to be talking about visas and jobs tonight because that's a different webinar for a different occasion. All we could say to you is keep in touch. If you haven't been to one of the webinars before, come along to one of the webinars and speak to Bore and Rachel and the team from both Migration Associates and Skills in Demand. There's their details there. In fact, we will be putting them up onto the chat room as well, so please copy them down. Send your CV across to Migration Associates and Skills in Demand, and they'll be more than happy to talk to you about your employment opportunities and also your visa accessibility as well. So please don't hesitate to do that. I know Migration Associates and Skills in Demand have offices within the UK and Europe region and also out in New Zealand itself. So they're like a throughput service. You can access them here and you can access them at the other end as well. So over to Matt Williams from Moneycorp. Matt, I'm going to hand the reins over to you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier on about this may not necessarily seem like the most important thing Ultimately, you can't get to New Zealand unless you've got a visa. You may need to have a job in order to get that visa, so that's pretty important as well. And this is more about not whether you get there or not, because you can get there without transferring your money or transferring it the wrong way. This is about how well you make that transition, how much money you have when you get over there, which I know we all want to get out there and it'd be great to move over there. And, you know, some of you would do anything to get over there, but actually when you think with your head instead of your heart, it's actually, you've spent a long time building up wealth in this country or whichever country you're in at the moment. And making that move again, you don't want to start again too much. All that hard-earned money, you want to make sure that you arrive in New Zealand with as much of it as possible. And that's effectively what we're going to talk about today. So this is something that you don't need, you know, a week before you go. This is about trying to plan how much money you're going to have, what that exchange rate is, how much money you've got now, how much you're going to have out in New Zealand. And how much you have depends on, you know, it can work out what sort of house you buy, what sort of area you go to, what kind of car you drive. So these are really important decisions that at the planning stage that you need to think about and be aware of. So you're planning the right kind of life for yourself when you get over there, and there are no nasty surprises. So moving on, just a little bit about Moneycorp and why we're qualified to talk about this. So Moneycorp have been trading foreign exchange since 1979. And essentially what we offer is a service that is an alternative to using your bank for sending money overseas. We transfer about 20 billion of currency every year, employ 760 employees, as you can see there. We're fully FCA authorized and regulated. So it's important that we're regulated and you can see information about us. And so the idea, we know what we're doing. We've been around for a while and we've been doing it for a long time very successfully. So that's a bit about us. So this isn't necessarily about Moneycorp. This is about the service in general and why you would use someone like us rather than using the bank. So moving on, just a bit about sort of our service. The exchange rate, obviously fairly volatile. We've seen quite a lot's happened in the last year. I don't know if anyone's been keeping up with the news. Something just over a year ago, fairly large happened in the UK. So, sorry for the people that aren't in the UK. This is applicable to any currency. And we can certainly talk about that on a one-on-one basis, but just because a lot of the people on here are from the UK, I thought I'd cover this one. So just over a year ago, the UK voted to leave the European Union, which was generally seen as quite a negative thing from economic point of view. And as a result of that, we saw the pound dip fairly heavily against the New Zealand dollar. As you can see there, from the highs of 2.18 just before the referendum result down to 1.77. So it's a fairly big jump. What does that actually mean to you? Now, this is an idea about sort of what impact the exchange rate has. It's just a small number, 2.18, 1.77. But actually, if you look at that at the bottom of the slide, 50,000 pounds converted into New Zealand dollars on the 29th of May at the high to the low there was a difference of, you know, almost $20,000. Now, that's a pretty big amount on just 50,000. Now, if you think you're selling your house, you're taking all your savings, transferring it over there, it could be a hell of a lot more than 50,000. But so this is just an example of how much difference it makes. Now, there may be a point when you're moving and that's the point you move and there's nothing you can do about it. If you're not ready to do the transfer a year ago, then what can you do? What difference does it make? Well, planning what's going to happen. Now, certain element of these would be predictable. And as a result of that, you can start planning and you're thinking, well, let's use 1.77 as a worst case. It'd be great if it's 2.18 by the time you go. That means you have more money. But actually, think about the worst case scenario and do your budgeting from that. So moving on to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about sort of what changes the exchange rates and why you would use someone like Moneycorp. So the alternative is going to your bank. Well, the banks, I don't know if you've ever tried to do an international payment or even tried to phone your bank during the day. It's a bit of a nightmare. You're on hold for a long time. The problem with banks is they don't do a lot of international transfers. So the people you speak to aren't particularly knowledgeable. They're going to give you a rate. You don't know if that's a good rate or a bad rate. They probably don't know either. So although we offer much better exchange rates, typical comparisons maybe 2 to 4% better than the banks. That's the first thing that we can do. So even if you call us the day before you go, we're going to save you quite a lot of money. But actually, the next step, the free guidance, is probably the most important thing. Now, you can open a Moneycorp account whenever you want. You can do it a year, 2 years before you go, and it doesn't cost you anything at all. And it doesn't obligate you to use us when the time comes. So what you do get is you're allocated your own account manager. Now, these guys are experts in the market. They deal with migrants, people like yourself, all day long. And what they can do is just give you guidance about, okay, the current rate is this. This is what's likely to happen to the exchange rates moving forward. And, these are the potential rates that could be. So when you start thinking about that and thinking about what kind of house can I buy and what kind of area could I live in, you would use those rates rather than the current rate, because there's no guarantee that that rate's still going to be available in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, and a year's time, it's going to be even less likely. So as I mentioned, there's no cost or obligation to using this service. So I recommend anyone listening today, if you're going within the next 12 months, it's definitely worth registering and just having a chat. There's no harm in having a conversation, finding out what the rate is now, having an idea about how much money you're going to have if you sell your house, whatever savings you've got. If you've got a rough figure in mind and roughly where you want to go, we can give you some guidance about what's likely to happen to the rate in your timescale. I mentioned trying to call your bank. Well, as I said, it's pretty difficult to get down to your branch, and if you're on the phone, it's going to take you ages. We're open until 9 o'clock in the evening, and you can always get straight through to your account manager. So it's a much easier service. So if you want to call us when it's convenient for you, then we can talk about that. So moving on. What's the comparison against the high street bank? I mentioned we get better rates. Now, this is interesting. Recently, I thought I'd phone up my own bank, bank with HSBC, and pretend that I was moving over to New Zealand. I wish I was, but I'm still here in the UK. So phoned up, I said I had £100,000 to transfer. So first of all, I was on the phone for 15 minutes. First of all, it took a while to actually get through to anyone, but once I did get through, I was on hold for another 15 minutes to find the right person that knew what they were doing. And that took a couple of different people to transfer through. So that's firstly, not a great experience. Certainly, if the exchange rates are moving, I could have lost out on a really good exchange rate while I was waiting to get through to someone that knows what they're doing. Then they told me that the maximum transfer they could do is £10,000, which isn't great since I'm doing 100,000. So that would take me 10 transfers in order to do that. And I'd be paying a fee for every time that I did it. So I'd have to go into my branch. Well, the branches aren't open past, 5 o'clock these days. So I've got to take time off to go down there. If it was over a weekend, I would have to wait until, Monday. And, a weekend's quite a long time in currency. So first of all, they quoted me an indication rate, finally, of 173. So I said, is that a good rate? I said, I don't know. That's the rate at the moment. So I thought, okay, great. That's not fantastic. And just for a comparison, a New Zealand seminar attendee did the exact same transfer early in the month that I did the comparison. They got 175, which on that transfer of 100,000 would have got them an extra 2,000 New Zealand dollars on the same day. So that's really interesting. So just on any particular day, there's $2,000 saving. So, we're not talking about small figures. Now, if you look at the different times that, the exchange rate fluctuations, that could make a huge difference on that amount. Right, Chris, moving on to the next slide. So it's not just bank transfers that we do as well. Another thing that we can do, we can help get you some cash as well. If you're flying out of one of the airports we have branches at, we can arrange to have some cash ready for you to pick up. So as soon as you land, you're not spending money on your UK card. You can use it in New Zealand dollars. The other thing we offer for all of our clients, we give them a free prepaid currency card, which allows you to top up New Zealand dollars on there. And then you'll be able to use it just like you would do any, your own card. The difference is you're using Moneycorp rates rather than your bank rate. What you can do, this links into your international payment account. So if you transfer, say, $100,000 over there, you can transfer 98,000 over to your bank account that you set up, and the extra, 2,000 you can just put on your card and spend it as you would do any other card. So that's a really interesting service. So I'd be happy to talk a bit more about that. So moving on, just to wrap up, really. Moneycorp bank beating exchange rates. So any amount you send, so it may be even if you're keeping your house here and renting it out, you need to transfer money to and from New Zealand. We can do smaller amounts. Our smallest transfer is £50. So, don't think it's just about 100,000 transfers. We can do really small amounts as well. There's no fees when you send over if you send it to BNZ, who's one of our banking partners over there. But what we're actually doing today is as an offer for anyone that signs up today, and we can put a link on the chat room, we're going to offer them free transfers. So they won't pay a transfer fee for life. if you set up the account today. And as I said, that's completely free to do. It doesn't obligate you to use us whatsoever. So even if you decide not to use it, just having that option there is really useful. So just trying to get through is the timing of the transfer is really important. Don't just call us 2 days before you go, because that's going to be the worst thing. That's like playing roulette. Are you going to get what you want, or is it going to be a terrible rate? The sooner you get in touch with us, the better chance you're going to have of getting a good rate. You can do the transfer over the phone, or you can do it online. So for smaller amounts on a regular basis, you can still do that online. And as I mentioned, moving within 12 months, you want to register today and just get that guidance. It may be a case you have a chat, you get an idea about what's happening, and then you say, look, give me a call in 6 months, or, give me a call if a good rate comes along. We'll just have a chat. And, if we do something great, if we don't, just say, call me back in another month. It's been slightly delayed, and we'll be at your beck and call. So that's me, Matt from Moneycorp. And just again, the sooner you do this, the better it's going to work for you. And the more option you're going to get and the more information. And, like you say, you can't have too much information at this sort of stage. And I know I focus a lot about the UK just because that's where a lot of the people logged on are from. We can help anyone, whether you're in the US, you're the UAE, Europe, anywhere at all, we can help you. Just get in touch, and happy to answer any questions at the end of the webinar. Yeah,
no worries at all, Matt. Thank you very much for that. It's interesting,
you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's interesting that you, excuse me. It's interesting that you raised that point about doing this well in advance. I know, and I speak from my own personal experience. I've got a Moneycorp account, and I've actually had a Moneycorp account for years. When I did the sale of my property in Australia and came over to the UK, I'd actually gone through that process and sought guidance from your FX experts. And we did a strategy that went out for 6 months, looking at the different exchange rates. So I've got to tell you, it worked fantastic. And we also banked with HSBC, and we compared the rates at the time, and they were well down. We had enough in that transaction to pay rent for a year as a direct result of that here in the UK. So I can vouch firsthand for the services that you provide. Excuse me. We're going to talk about PSS now. I'm going to just remove this presentation for a sec because I want to play a video for you, John. You just bear with me a sec. Okay.
Packing day. So this is it. The removal men are here. Let the madness begin. We're flying to New Zealand with just one suitcase each, but everything else in our house needs to be packed into lots of boxes.
It looks like a portion of fish and chips.
Is it?
And that's a lot of fish and chips.
Are you going to be okay in there till the bag?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Okay, here you go. Bye. See you in New Zealand.
Bye.
Bye.
Everything in our house has to fit into this freight container, which will take a whole 2 months to travel to New Zealand on a huge ship. Bye, house. Bet we beat you to New Zealand.
And so John, I thought I'd throw that video up for you that I found on YouTube.
Oh, cheers. That was really great fun. That was done with the CBeebies. The family, when they actually arrived in New Zealand, the new school, the kids' new school actually met them at their class did, should I say, met them at the airport and performed the school haka for them. It was really quite heartwarming to watch because we get so caught up, we forget about the young ones, it's just as, leaving their friends and, friends behind, and it's just as traumatic for them. So it was pretty cool and actually quite a bit of an eye-opener for us, yeah. Well, I mean, also just talking about, Matt and the assistance that Moneycorp give. I mean, we've been referring our clients to them for just over 10 years, but not only do they do that, but obviously we work worldwide. So where we cover the most of the globe. And what that does is that we've obviously got to pay our overseas-based agents, and the money we save using a currency broker, or even our clients. That's the difference. A lot of, if you're selling your property, that could cover the cost of your shipping. Anyway, Chris, if you could flick to the next one, the next slide over there. Yeah. I mean, when choosing a preferred shipping company, and this is worldwide, I mean, and certainly looking at everybody around the globe that's joined us tonight, and we can certainly assist you. I mean, yes, our head office is in London, but we've got really strong relationships over the years throughout the globe. So please don't think that this is just UK based. So if you're sitting in the UAE or in the US, yeah, we work with well-recognized companies. And the most important thing that you should be looking at, every organization or company that you're dealing with in terms of migration, you want to make sure that they have the correct accreditation. So it's a big move. So you want to make sure the companies you're dealing with are trusted organizations. And UK-based wise, you should be looking at companies that are members of the BAR. Now you'll see that sign locally, but what you don't see very often is the overseas remover advance payment guarantee. Because you're paying for your shipment up front, what that actually covers you is that, God forbid, a company went into administration, your goods will be still shipped abroad. And the FIDI FAME Alliance, Global Alliance, that's an international accreditation. That means we all have to follow certain guidelines in terms of documentation and the whole process. And moving on from there, yeah, and what we would recommend, I mean, and this is really the main point that I would really love to bring across this evening, is that it's so important for us to get an understanding of actually what we're walking into. Because it's not just walking around the house. We're pretty nosy. We open all the cupboards, look inside, and give a real full breakdown. So once we finish walking around, you'll get a full, extensive list of every single item, room by room, because you may change your mind, or you may add certain things, or even take things off. So we spend a good hour at the house. It's a free service. We look at the access to the property. We actually start looking at the access to the property about a mile down the road, whether you've got any overhanging trees, any low bridges, whether we need to get parking suspension. But just as important, it's about going through those rules and regulations. I mean, New Zealand is one of the biggest suppliers of dairy products due to the Asian market. And to give you an example, like the UK, I mean, with foot and mouth, mad cow disease and bird flu, the last thing they need is any cross-contamination. So although, yes, it's important for everybody to get an understanding, but we certainly wouldn't be walking around and noticing things. And it's really good education in terms of what you cannot take. Moving on to the next one. And when in saying all of that, I mean, it's pretty, I mean, although it sounds very daunting in terms of what you cannot take to New Zealand, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, anything that's coming into contact with soil, like, for example, bicycles, golf clubs, garden furniture, all those items need to be thoroughly cleaned. I mean, what we do supply, though, is a Deconest spray, or the MEF spray, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fishery spray. So when we pop around on the last day, look at the garden furniture and so forth, we would actually go around just spraying, using the spray just to make sure that there aren't any foreign seeds, soil, and that's really what they're looking at. I mean, things like perishables, for obvious reasons, you wouldn't take that anyway, but things such as ivory, even pianos, antique pianos, the keys are made of ivory, not hard plastic. So, and our guys have been in the industry for many years, and this is the type of information that we would give you. The prohibited articles, these are items that could come into the, go into New Zealand, but could be subjected to fumigation, radiation, and even worst case scenario, destruction. That would be things such as wicker, cane, bamboo, just purely because of the way it's been woven, purely because, like, for example, bamboo is hollow, so they're worried about microorganisms. So things such as vacuum cleaners, making sure that the filter's thoroughly clean. A lot of clients do actually get caught out on their bicycles because they forget to turn it upside down, clean on the inside. And things that I would recommend that you don't take, for example, alcohol, just drink it all, have a big party. To pay 40% duty once it arrives out there is really not worth it. In terms, just before we actually come around, we would strongly recommend that you isolate a room, put all your essentials, the stuff that's going with you on your plane, essential documentation, just keep that one side, so ensure that obviously those items don't get packed. And then moving on from there. Now, as you can see, I mean, there is such a vast difference between moving domestically and internationally. We do not touch the domestic market. All our packers have been trained in international export packing. I mean, that, to example there, each plate's individually wrapped, greaseproof tissue paper, packed up right. Dining room tables, we actually, what we would class as antique wrap. So we'll cut out corrugated cardboard, so if anything leaned against the actual surface of the dining room table, you don't get little pressure marks. And also again with electrical appliances. So for example, if you're taking your TV, if you don't have the original box, we would actually build a wooden case for you. In saying that, a lot of clients say, well, can I actually take my furniture because it's made of wood? When they talk about wood, they literally mean raw timber. The only furniture that would be inspected are antiques. So in other words, that are in excess of 100 years old, because obviously more susceptible to wood mine. Again, we would not pack something that we did not feel or felt that maybe it may cause you problems out there. Now, on another note, I mean, with regards to electrical appliances and any items you are looking at taking, we strongly recommend, yes, you do look at actually consider taking, for example, front-loading washing machines. As you know, in New Zealand, they have a lot of top loaders, and it's great fun. You can take things, put it out, but front-loading washing machines, I mean, pretty cheap. I mean, you can get them next to nothing in the UK, for example, but I mean, you're looking at excess of $1,000 in New Zealand. So you may want to consider taking your white goods. Pointless taking IKEA stuff. There is no IKEA in New Zealand anyway. So the guys would have no idea. I mean, we struggled with the diagram, so they wouldn't have any idea on how to put these items together. If you can flick across there, Chris. Yeah, now they've got a couple of services that we offer. Now, you either get your shared container, so in other words, a part load, but the illustration over there, as you can see, is a sole use container. Now, it's literally very similar dimensions to a single garage. So what that would comfortably hold is the equivalent of a 3-bedroom house, or most thereof, bar the large, big double wardrobes. And what we would do is we'll pop around on day one. We'll wrap everything, leaving the essentials for that evening. Following day, around about 10, 11 o'clock, you'll see the container pull up. And you watch it all get loaded, sealed, and then sent down to obviously Southampton or the closest port to your residence. And then moving on from there. And as you can see by the illustration, that's purely what we call a shared service. So in other words, you just don't really have enough to send your own container load, or you want to be really pick and choosing what you're sending. The shared container service still falls under the removal service as soon as you add one piece of furniture. Now, as you can see on the left there, you'll notice those tea cartons. Those are the standard industry removal box, comfortably hold around about 25 to 30 kilograms and hold the volume equivalent of a large suitcase. I mean, we've got some amazing rates for excess baggage. I mean, it takes us 2 weeks, for example, to fill a 40-foot container just for those going through to Auckland. And what makes it quite special is, you know, whether it be the North Island or the South Island, both areas are in such demand at the moment. Although in saying that, Wellington Port is having problems at the moment, so things are routed elsewhere, but the Wellington Port should be up and running. We've been told no later than August, so cross fingers. We wouldn't have to reroute those consignments going to Wellington. And then moving on from there. Okay, so that would be, as I mentioned earlier, about the shared container space. So as opposed to the container being actually physically loaded outside your residence, we'd bring your consignment back to our depot. It gets loaded, wait for a full load, gets put into a 40-foot container, wait for a full load, obviously then sealed at our depot, taken down to, from our place anyways, being Southampton, and then obviously gets on the next available vessel. And then going on from there, yeah, now, well, almost every single client asks about sending their vehicle through to New Zealand. Unlike Australia, where you've got 10% duty, 10% GST, and possible even luxury car taxes, the great thing about New Zealand, there is no GST. and there is no duty. You're allowed one family vehicle, duty-free into New Zealand, as long as you've owned and physically used it for 12 months. Yes, you may, well, you will have to get compliance, and that's literally opening the front door, taking a copy of the VIN number, sending it through to AA in New Zealand. I mean, we found that, I mean, good quality vehicles, especially European vehicles, if you do your research, are considered, I mean, a lot more expensive, certainly compared to the UK. We've worked out that if you sold your car today and could get at least £5,000 for it, including the shipping costs, we actually do all the clearance on your behalf. Once it arrives out there, it's still considered worth it. Although you can't sell the vehicle for a certain period of time, when you do, you certainly do make your money back. Yes, there are a lot of cheap runaround Toyotas, because what happens in Japan, after 5 years, their road tax is so high that they export a lot of the Toyotas, for example, into New Zealand. So you'll see a lot of little runarounds out there, but certainly worthwhile considering getting a quote out for your vehicle. We're one of literally a handful of companies that are left that will actually do this outside your residence, obviously access permitting. So what we would do is we will come and load your 3-bedroom house, build a drywall, put in the car on the back end, seal it so that we can send the whole consignment actually out there in a 40-foot container. Additional charges out there, I mean, to be absolutely honest with you, no matter how clean that vehicle is, they will charge you a cleaning cost. And you're looking around about 450 New Zealand dollars in terms of to get the vehicle actually cleared. And then moving on from that slide. Right, now a lot of our clientele look at that and say, John, please make sure mine's on the top left-hand corner. Touch wood. In the 15 years, certainly being the PSS and speaking to a lot of colleagues, that's one phone call I never want to make. That's why it's so important. And over the years, we always get asked, you know, what accreditations do you have? One thing we never get asked is what shipping lines are being used. And that is just as an important question. We only use Mediterranean Shipping Company, Maersk, NYK, well-recognized shipping companies. So, you always got to check your estimates and don't just go, okay, well, that's the cheapest one. Yeah, that's great. That's what I'm going to go for. So because for all you know, it could be a really cheap shipping line's lost its MOT, God knows when. So you want to make sure that you also ask that question. In terms of the actual sailing period, now, for example, if we're talking about the UK Southampton, going through to whether it be Littleton, Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland, I would budget on around about 40 days from departure to arrival at the port. On a shared container, plan on anything from up to 12 weeks on excess baggage shared container, and that would be to the arrival port, then still allow at least 10 working days for the clearance and then notification for delivery. The relationship that we built up with our partners in New Zealand is that we understand that migrants do need that little bit of extra time. You know, they're going to short-term rented accommodation, may not have actual availability or space for their effects. So the arrangement that we do have with them is that we will also throw in 4 weeks free storage in New Zealand, and if needed, I'm happy to offer that in the UK. Moving on from there. Okay, then as you can see, once the container and everything arrives, it goes through the whole customs process. Now, a good few years ago, or maybe I would say in excess of 5 years ago, the odd client got away with the actual inspection fee. Now, I would say to all clients, go with the mindset that you're definitely going to end up paying an inspection fee. What happens is, because paperwork travels a lot quicker than obviously the consignment, they will look at 10% of what you're sending. So they'll pull out the golf clubs, the camping gear, the garden furniture. That could be isolated. They just recently, I would say in the last year or two, actually changed their regulations. Before, the container used to come to your house and the customs officer would come to your new property. Now everything is removed from the container, goes into a large storage depot, isolating it for the inspection. Now, with regards to cost, I would say if you were only looking at maybe 5, 6 boxes, I would budget on anything between 50 to 100 New Zealand dollars. a 20-foot container about $500, and a 40-foot container anything up to about $750. But that's payable once it arrives out in New Zealand. You will be notified beforehand, because a lot of our clients may only have managed to supply us with a correspondence address. So they will give you a call and arrange suitable delivery. When they do deliver, they will remove all waste material furniture, basic assembly, i.e. dining room tables, beds, they will reassemble and put into designated rooms. Boxes, they will leave into certain areas or maybe unpack to a flat surface area, giving you the opportunity to look at it. The only additional and optional fee is whether or not you're going to take up any form of cover. I think that is something of real personal preference, entirely up to you. I mean, things like books, clothing, toys, wouldn't bother with. But certainly on the electrical appliances, yeah, definitely. You may say, yeah, you know, I want to put a little bit of cover on those things. Again, it's a personal preference. Okay, moving on from there, Chris. Yeah, great. So, I mean, thanks for allowing me to take my time to have a little chat today about international removals to New Zealand and a little bit about PSS. But like I said, if I could get one thing across this evening, and I'm sure this applies to everybody that's presenting here tonight, is really start thinking about pre-planning. Start talking to us at least 6 months before you go. But yeah, like in the chat room, you'll see all our details there. We'd love to have a chat to you guys and see how we can offer assistance. Chris, thanks for that, and I'll hand you back over to you and your great policy with regards to the migration cover.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Really appreciate that. I've got to apologise. Well, my throat is going even worse now. You would have, people in the chat room, obviously you're putting through questions and putting through comments, etc. as well. Yes, there are competitors to all of us in the marketplace, but I'll tell you where the difference is and where we're most proud of what it is that we do as a collective. This is New Zealand have invested lots of time, money and effort as a collective, from Migration Associates to Skills and Demand, PSS, Money Corp, Migration Cover, BNZ, the Bank of New Zealand, in educating the market. So you will see us everywhere so far as trying to educate the market and trying to give you the best opportunity to get from point A to point B. And that's why, when we look at, our competitors across the marketplace, yeah, sure, there are competitors. But the question you've got to ask yourself every time is, do they educate you and do they involve you in their conversations? And that's what we're attempting to do tonight. So I'm really looking forward to, straight after this presentation, having a talk to you about any questions or answers that you require to make your life better. And that's actually what we're about here at This Is New Zealand as well. So moving on from me, I'd like to say, yeah, thanks very much, John, for your presentation. Fantastic job, mate. So what Migration Cover is it's an insurance policy that I invented. I invented it because several of these things happened to me. I am an immigrant myself. I got a visa to the United Kingdom, and we lost 2 parents within a very, very short time frame from each other. It was, in fact, a matter of weeks. I looked around to see, who's going to help me as a visa applicant or as a migrant in my new country, and the answer was, other than close family and friends, it was very difficult. It meant that during a period of illness and these terrible things that happened to us, that we had to travel back to Australia several times. So what I did was I invented this new insurance product with Lloyd's of London, in particular the Atrium Syndicate, and it's designed for people who are migrating from one country to the other. There's 3 specific options that I want to talk to you about, and the first one is we know, and it's through our research and also what happened to us as well, that people are concerned about leaving family behind and leaving parents behind. Some people leave their children behind to attend school, or young adult children to take up work. But more importantly, normally one of the partners in the relationship will have a deep concern about leaving a family member behind or family members. Excuse me. As a direct result of that, we developed an insurance, this part of the insurance package, that if in fact one of your close relatives becomes seriously injured, seriously ill, or there's a death in the family for a close relative, then we will return you back to where you came from. So if you're going to New Zealand, will give you and your family return airfares up to the level of the policy limits to get you back straight away to deal with what you need to deal with. And it's so, so important. It's that catch-all that says that you'll be there if the worst should occur. And it gives your family comfort, lots of comfort. Those people that you're leaving behind, it gives them the comfort of knowing that you will be there if the worst occurs. Not only that, but we also give you temporary accommodation. Now, if you're going to New Zealand, you and your family or you as an individual are going to New Zealand and you become seriously ill or you have a serious injury, maybe a workplace injury, then we will fully repatriate you back to where you came from. And we do that through a range of services, including your removal. And in fact, PSS Removals, being the company that they are one of our claims panel providers for Lloyd's as well, which John doesn't brag about, but I will. So it's everything from that to financial services to paying out your rent bond, your mobile phone bills, etc., all to make sure that you get back to where you came from in the same condition that you left in. Option 2 that you see here, the involuntary unemployment package, is so, so important. And I'll talk about the complete package shortly. That's the temporary and permanent return package. And involuntary unemployment package. So what is it and what does it achieve? If you're going to New Zealand on a specific type of visa, there are some visa classes, and this is just in general terms, there are some visa classes that if you will lose employment, then you would have to go out and get another sponsored employer to take you on. But have you ever thought about what would happen if you take up a new job? As good as Skills and Demand are and as good as Migration Associates are, they can't control what your employer does. So you're going to do a Skype interview or you're going to go and take up employment in New Zealand, and within 30, 60, 90 days, let's say the worst occurs and you become redundant. You get made redundant. What are you going to do? Well, what we do as part of that insurance policy is that we provide you with a dedicated advocate to get you back into the workplace doing the same job. So we give you out to the advocate will work with you with a bunch of recruiters, and Lloyd's pay for the claim for you to get back into the workplace. Our job in the claims department is to get you back to work straight away, as soon as we possibly can. Not only that, we also want to make sure that you've got the correct qualifications. So if a skills assessment is necessary and we need to get you the New Zealand qualification standard, we'll do that. And because you're dealing with Migration Associates, you can also go back to Migration Associates. Lloyd's will pay for the further visa or migration advice through to Migration Associates as well as part of your claim. So they do that to make sure that your visa is still valid, or maybe you have the opportunity to transfer out to another visa class. These are all the things that an experienced immigration advisor, such as Bore and the team at Migration Associates, do. Now, let's say the worst occurred and we couldn't find you another job, not in the vicinity that you're going to. What we would do is we'll relocate you within New Zealand. So we'll pay for the relocation. And once again, we'll call upon PSS to perform that task for us and through one of their partner organisations. But PSS will manage that part of the claim. And then if we couldn't find you new work at all in New Zealand, we will permanently return you back to where you came from. We'll pay for your airfares, for your accommodation, your full removal, relocation costs, and your cancellation costs back in your home country. The idea behind this insurance is to put you back in the same position you were when you left. Now, some people, and not many now, take a risk and say, I'm not going to take the insurance. It's entirely up to you. We're not giving you advice as to what you should and shouldn't do. What we're saying to you is that this type of insurance is an option for you, and you should consider it in your pathway. In fact, you'll hear all about it through various sources anyway on the internet. We do have a complete migration cover package which covers the option 1 and the option 2, and it does have the inclusion of the annual multi-trip insurance. One of the things I'll say to you is that as soon as you step foot in New Zealand on any visa class other than working holiday or a tourist visa, you're now resident in New Zealand. When you're resident in New Zealand, if you had a travel insurance policy in the other countries that you're in, they may not be valid anymore because they expect you to be still resident in the UK or the United States, etc. So you need to check with your local providers for your own travel insurance, but nonetheless, we do include that as well, either on a single basis or an annual multi-trip. Just to give you an idea about costings, and this is the starting prices for our policy. So £14 a month for a single person, £22 a month, or in US dollars, $19 or $32, and kids go free. So we don't charge a premium for additional kids. You can have as many children as you like. that are named on the policy and will be covered under the policy as well. So there's the travel add-ons. The option 3 has got it included for free, but you can just add on a single journey. We do pay by the month as well. The reason why we do pay by the month is that you're able to establish your credit rating in your new country, or this will contribute to your credit rating in your new country, simply by the fact that you'll have a financial contract in that country before you even arrive. I would highly recommend that you get a migration cover quote well in advance, and they're obligation free. Like, we don't, start chasing you around the place saying, buy now, buy now. We're not that business. What we are is a business that offers you up the opportunity to take out insurance that will hopefully make a difference to your lives. And it's really, really important to me, and it's important to the rest of my team, that we are there to change lives for the better. And that's why I'm dealing with people like PSS and Moneycorp and Migration Associates and the likes, because they're all in the same position. We're all come from the same place. So we do have single annual worldwide multi-trip travel insurance as well. If you're a backpacker, we have backpacker insurance for you. If you want health insurance, we're bringing medical health insurance, private health cover in New Zealand on shortly. So you'll see that on our website at migrationcover.com. We do single or family, as I said before. We cover up to the age of 60 years of age. That's what we do. Unfortunately, we can't cover above 60. Those restrictions are put on us. And we also have income protection. Not that you may need it for New Zealand, because they have a fantastic government-based system for workplace accident and injury department system as well. But we can provide income protection as well. So what I'd say to you, go to migrationcover.com, and I'll put some links up straight after this as well. But go to migrationcover.com. We'll give you a discount code, which is TINZ for TINS. This is New Zealand. That'll get you 5% off straight away. So feel free to go and get your quote. I'll be able to track you through. I can see who you are. And then as Bore and the likes are dealing with you, and Skills and Demand are dealing with you, they'll tell us where you are in the process, and we'll be in touch. Or you can give us a call anytime. As I said, pay by the month is available. You can buy it for up to 2 years after arrival as well, so that you can have that coverage throughout those visa periods. And TINS is your discount code. Please remember to make sure that you read the product disclosure statement on the website. You'll find it easily under the policy wording section of the menu, and make sure that the policy is right for you before you go ahead and buy the insurance as well. And that being said, very passionate about how and what it is that migration is about, and returning people back to the same place they came from as well. So thank you for listening to me. I'm going to open the floor back up now to my colleagues and counterparts. John, Matt, please join me back in the room. I'm going to turn this presentation off for a sec, and let's go over to the chat room, and let's have a talk to the people. Edgar, thanks very much for your time. I'll be in touch with you off your IP address straight after, and we'll have a chat. So thanks very much. Okay, so as I said before, if you could please go ahead and put your questions in on the chat system, we'd be more than happy to help in any way we can.
Do you want to go through some questions there, Chris? What's the question?
Yeah, sure. No worries at all. I'm just having a look at the any questions that we've got on here, actually. Great. It's always.
Well, Chris, I may as well just mention, while people are thinking of something, to type away or ask any questions that they may have for us. But the relationship that we've had with Migration Associates and Skills in Demand, and to be honest with you, with Bore and his team, we've been working with him, for many years now. I would say it must be leading up to at least 10 years. With their migrants, what we found is, a lot of the guys that are heading out there, certainly now, a lot of them are tradies, and a lot of them have their tools, and really good tools like DeVault, cordless battery, drills. For the tradies, it takes years to accumulate. It's not something you can just go out and buy, but also at the same time, if they got their job offer, they expected to start work pretty quickly. They can't be sitting around waiting for 12 weeks before the actual effects arrive. So the arrangement that we've put up is that any client, firstly, who has maybe a container load of personal effects, we would give 25 kilograms of free airframe. So get your tools in there. We'll get it out there, and we can get it out there pretty quickly. Certainly within 7 working days from the time we collect it, and that would be for door to door. Alternatively, if you don't have the full container and you've only got a couple of boxes of just really booked clothing, and you've got a couple of other boxes, we will actually give that a third box or the fourth box. We'll give a box free of charge in getting out there. But there's a good question there with regards to pets. Now, we don't obviously personally deal with pets. I mean, I don't think anyone would be too best pleased as putting a dog in a container or a cat or anything like that. But I mean, we work very closely with a couple of companies, and certainly Annie from Transfer is one of them. But I think the biggest thing that you need to take into account when taking a pet is they base it on either the weight or the volumetric weight. So in other words, the size of the animal or the weight of the animal, whichever is the greater. But I think the biggest point to raise now is that make sure that it has its rabies injections, and that the pet cannot travel for at least 6 months. So make sure that you get those rabies injections sorted. Speak to the experts. I mean, these guys are really good. I mean, I know that it's not cheap. Imagine what a a business class flight will cost you. But they really look after the pets nowadays. I mean, then the whole of the plane, obviously, between the wings, induces sleep. They almost put this nappy material down, so if it wets itself, it's not going to cause a problem. So certainly speak to Bore. He's got some really good guys on board that can help, and certainly we can help you out in that if you really need assistance with your pet.
Yeah, so that's a good question about the pets and about moving your pet, and those guys at Pet Transfers, is that who you use? Transfer, yeah. Pet Transfers. So I was talking to them recently and about how they don't put the animal to sleep anymore. In fact, they care for the animal at each of the transit points, like in Dubai, for instance, or in Australia on the way through, and how important that is to the welfare of the animal. So that's really cool. Pierre-Marie, thank you for a great question, by the way. Can you speak more about skills and demand and the things that will make a point to start searching the right jobs? Well, first thing I can tell you is that I'll get Jenny's in the room tonight, and I'll get Jenny to put up the details for skills and demand. I would highly recommend that you get in touch with them tomorrow, have a talk to the great team over there, and talk to them about the job opportunities that they have. And they will also direct you to other websites and other places if they don't have the particular jobs themselves, okay? In fact, they have a list of other providers. And, of course, working with organisations that are already a sponsoring organisation in New Zealand for employment is really a key facet, and I think Bore would talk to you more about that as well. But you're quite right. Look, the approach for visas and jobs for New Zealand is always that. The visas and jobs, it's the characteristic thing that you need to go there for sure. You've got 2 expert companies that will assist you in every regard to that as well.
It's just, Chris, there's a question there from Holly a while ago. I think it was while I was doing my presentation. So just saying there, if I set up an account with BNZ or another bank, when I make the move, would it cost to transfer money from Moneycorp to BNZ? We have a partnership with BNZ, so usually would get charged at the other end. So when you transfer money, there's a few different charges you want to have a look at. And I know there's some other points about other people that are transferring free and things like that. Just to start off with, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free transfer. There's no company out there that does work for nothing. So you always pay for it. It's just how transparent they are and how open about their charges. I mean, the classic one is the post office that do free travel cash. Well, they don't charge you a fee for it, but the exchange rate you get is pretty horrible. So what they've done is they've cut their fee and they've just charged a bigger margin on the currency. So there's a few different fees. So there's 3 fees you generally pay when you're exchanging money. So there's the exchange rate that has a margin built into it, which is basically where the majority of the costs of the company you're dealing with make their money. You'll pay a transfer fee, which will get your money there, usually on a same-day payment and get it there very quickly. And sometimes you get charged a receiving fee at the other end. So this is something charged by a clearing bank. So just from Moneycorp point of view, I can't talk about any other companies, but we charge a pretty good margin. We usually save you sort of between 2 or 3% versus the bank, which is as I mentioned in my presentation, we don't charge a fee. Well, we usually do charge a fee of £15 per transfer, but as I said, we're offering a deal tonight for anyone that opens up an account. They'll get free transfers for life. But we do something for New Zealand Skills in Demand, so everyone gets their first transfer free, so they don't pay that transfer fee. With regards to the receiving fee, which is the third fee that I mentioned, if you transfer money to a BNZ account, then there's no fee at the receiving end. So that's a special deal that they put together. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, isn't it? And so I'd like to move on to another question that was asked before, and it was about getting your qualifications transferred across to New Zealand. Yes, that's an important part of your job and your visa. Once again, the crew or the team at New Zealand Skills and Demand, and specifically Migration Associates, will be able to direct you in relation to that, because obviously it's very important to have your qualifications recognised in your new country. So they are well equipped and best placed to assist in that regard as well. So any help for employment sponsorship visa, Shabir? I wish, but once again, yeah, you need to talk to the right people about that. Their details are up on the site.
And there was just another money court question there. Sorry, Chris.
Here you go.
Do we have a service in China? Unfortunately, we don't have any operations in China. There are certain restrictions with getting money out of China, which I'm sure if you are in China, you'll probably know about. If you do have your money offshore and it's not in local currency, we can certainly help someone who lives in China. But unfortunately, those rules are in place, and there's nothing we can do to help you get around that, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Joanne, hey, thanks for the feedback, Joanne, out to Andrew as well. Talking about pet passports and, moving your pet, etc. You're quite right. And making sure that you've got all of the information. I suppose that's the best thing about having these webinars, having the best information at your disposal. And if we can't get it here, we'll put you in touch with the people who can provide you with the answers as well. But thank you very much, Joanne. Really appreciate it. Has anyone else got any more questions that they'd like to talk about? Now, if not, I've got some questions for PSS, actually, for you, Moinsey.
Oh, cool. Yeah, fire away. Yeah.
Well, it's actually a question that some of my clients have been talking about, and I'll come back to you in a sec, William. In fact, I won't, William, because your question's really, really important. So, John, been moving a stamp collection which has been packed in plastic and see-through containers already. Will it be necessary to repack, or could it be checked and shipped as such?
No,
after it's properly sealed.
No, that is absolutely perfect way of doing it, because obviously with stamps you've got to consider moisture. You've got to consider the environment. You could not ask for a better way of packing. So all we would do is just maybe wrap the outside of it so we can inscribe name, reference, number, and so forth, or just put it into one of our boxes. One thing you've got to take into account, though, is whether or not, if it's a high value, extremely high value stamp collection, we would need to speak to the underwriters and get a special policy put aside for that. Because obviously, depending on the value of that collection, you may need to get it independently assessed. But William, you're spot on. Couldn't have asked for a better way of protecting it.
Well, he's actually going to ask questions that I've got as well. So William's also asked about computers and screens, which would also then reflect on televisions. How do you stop the screens from getting cracked?
Okay, well, certainly for monitors, I mean, it wouldn't be worth putting those into wooden cases. Now, remember I mentioned earlier about wood being treated and everything. I mean, we supply wood and it has to be heat treated and stamped by the Ministry of Culture and Fisheries. But monitors, we don't really, and it's pretty much the same with pastel paintings, water paintings. You don't want to be really wrapping around in bubble wrap, because obviously with the heat within the container, you don't want moisture working to the inner parts of the monitor or hard drive. So what we would do is literally wrap it in greaseproof tissue paper and fill it and put it in a box. It takes a little bit of more extra room than say you would pack other items, but we would fill that box with flow pack. So we put a layer at the bottom, right? So it's basically floating in these horrible little polystyrene balls. When you take it out, you seem to pick up these little polystyrene bits and pieces for weeks later. But and then we leave what they call a crush factor, about an inch or two at the top of the box. A lot of our clients say, but they didn't fill the box to the top. When you pack the container, obviously it's like a jigsaw or Tetris. You've got to try and get it all in there. So we leave an inch or two, again with that polystyrene stuff, to say that if a box is pasted on top of it, you don't have to worry about that. But certainly, like I said, the domestic packing, the international packing is a little bit more of a fine art. You would certainly find more breakages moving around the corner than what you would do internationally. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I just wanted to also talk to you about this one thing. I'm going to bring up the photograph for you now, and it's part of your presentation. It's this one here in particular with the ship.
Yeah.
With the ship, John.
Yep.
How many people ask you not to be the one up the front?
Oh, all the time. Whenever I do a seminar, well, the thing is in saying that, that's why I say nobody, in 15 years, I've never gone to a client's house, did a survey over the phone and said, well, what ship is being used? We talk about price, we talk about individual company accreditation, but nobody's actually asking. Now, a lot of recognized removal companies, and I have to say, make sure you get at least 3 estimates for your peace of mind. We're confident in New Zealand. We work with New Zealand Defence. We work with New Zealand Van Line. So pretty confident in the product that we can offer. But get your 3, but ask the question. They actually apparently float, right? The military used them as target practice, but because the shipping vessels can't actually pick it up, the radar don't pick them up when they do go overboard. But in saying that, like I said, that's never, and I've touch wood, I've never have to make that dreaded phone call. But as of last year, I think last year or the year before you could just take a container down to the docks and they would just stack it. The captain of the vessel is in full control of that vessel. If he feels that the buoyancy is off and is leaning one side, he can give it authorization that it kicks off a container. However, since about 2 years ago, every container now going down to any docks has to be weighed. So now, so everybody now knows the weight of each container. So when they actually now stack the container, it's actually now made buoyant and balanced before it actually sets sail. So, there are procedures now in place, but like I said, that is such a rare occurrence. Yes, what they call force majeure, act of God or something like that, that something may dreadfully happen. But again, that is such a rare occurrence.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd ask the question anyway.
Thanks. I always get to get after it. Yeah.
Listen, Eggles asked a question, and Jenny has. Thanks, Jenny, for piping in there to give the details for Rachel Beattie. Rachel's a fantastic lady at Skills and Demand, by the way. If you need anything in relation to the jobs, etc., get onto the email tonight. Get your CV going. If you need a good CV template, I'm sure that there are some really good ones for New Zealand just by Googling them. As well. But listen, what we would be really keen to know is this is our first webinar for the specials for the partners for This is New Zealand. If you could, on the chat room on the right-hand side, just tell us what you think of the webinar tonight. Let us know if there's anything different that we could do for you, or if there's any other information other than jobs and visas that we could possibly do next time. We'll invite you back, of course. We're always here to help, and hopefully we can provide you with everything that you need. So if you could give us some feedback, we would really, really appreciate it. You'd all agree with that, guys, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, like we said, it's all about, trying to provide as much help as we can. And, we mentioned, yes, jobs and visas are, it's your number one on the list, but, actually it's about trying to do everything at the same time. And, a lot of these just really quick, easy conversations, just, who knew about, some of the stuff that John has been talking about packing up your pets and, about what do you do if you lose your TV box and whether you take your car there. This is kind of thing that, is a really great service that someone like John offers that, look, they don't charge for their service until they come and pick up your goods. So if you want to ask them a question about whether you take your car or you buy another one out there, John's doing that out of the goodness of his heart. So that's a service that I definitely take advantage of. And, the same with us. If you want to know what the rate is, in 6 months or 12 months time, look, no one's got a crystal ball, but we can give you a good idea about what it potentially could be and what things are likely to affect it. And, if that helps you save a couple of pounds, in 6 months, a year's time, then, we've done our job.
Excellent. All right, boys. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to thank you very much, Andrew. Really appreciate that. Everyone will appreciate that feedback, mate. So what we're going to do is that after this, yes, you will receive an email from the partners from this webinar tonight. You definitely will. We're not there to hassle you out. What we're trying to do is just further educate you. and put you on the right path in relation to the services that we offer, and also that you can quickly link and locate the information about our companies and services as well. So I hope you got the most you possibly could out of this. We, as a collective, on behalf of This Is New Zealand, from the team at Migration Associates and Skills and Demand, from PSS Removals, Money Corp and Migration Cover, we wish you the greatest adventure of your lives. It's one of the best things you'll ever do. And we'd just like to say thank you. And I'll hand it over to you, John, and also Matt. But I just particularly want to say thank you for joining us tonight. We'll close down in about 3 minutes' time, but I'll hand over to you, boys.
Well, thanks, Chris. Also, the special thanks to you. I mean, putting this all together for everybody. No, it's also, you taking your time out. We just rock up and start presenting. And yes, Joanne, yeah, I'm sitting in a pair of shorts. Not certainly sitting in a suit. To trust me, you wouldn't want to see me on the camera right now. But I just also want to plug and say a big thank you to Bora and the team and Skills in Demand. I know a couple of people have asked about the visas and jobs and everything else. Please keep in mind that Migration Associates and Skills in Demand regularly have webinars. They've been kind enough to say we regularly do our webinars, and mention us in the webinar, but it's nice that they've really gone out of their way to give us the opportunity to talk about our services. So please constantly go onto Migration Associates website or Skills in Demand. All of us, we advertise when these webinars will be on. So if you've still got those important questions about visas, job ready, employment issues, certainly keep an eye out on their website. They regularly have webinars just dedicated to those aspects of it.
And sorry, John, I think there's some seminars coming up later in the year in the United Kingdom as well, isn't there?
Yeah, towards the end of the year. Yeah, and that's a really great, we do the webinars, and what's really cool is that you almost get to know the people before you actually meet them face to face, and it feels like a little community, and it's great fun to actually, to see all these individuals logging on, and then eventually meeting them face to face. And we do literally go Manchester, Birmingham, London. Yeah, we do our little road trip, really.
Yeah.
I guess we're sort of just about wrapping up, but thanks everyone for your feedback. Like I said, we're on hand for any questions that you have. I've posted the link on there for the Money Corp account, so if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and get yourself signed up. And look, we're on hand to answer any questions that you have. But good luck in your journeys, and hopefully that we'll see you all soon.
Yep, no worries at all. I'll just leave it with one last message to Eggle. Sad, very sad. It's because you were trying to get your question answered. Believe it or not, Jenny is Rachel from Skills in Demand. She's just in disguise tonight. So get in touch with her, mate. She'll look after you for sure. Thanks, everyone for attending tonight, and we wish you a very pleasant evening or morning wherever you are. Take care. Bye-bye.